The Great Malaise. It was centuries before our people could perceive that an inexplicable ill had taken root. The first sign came on the onset of old age and the consumptive impact of disease afflicting our elders. Given the tremendous longevity and health that we had previously enjoyed as a people, this was a terrifying development. Today, we take for granted the withering of our final years, often just over 300 years after birth. For the first generation in Ios, such rapid aging was unprecedented. Death from violence was familiar, but being consumed from within was not. Several persistent epidemics tore through Ios within the first millennia of the cataclysm. For the first time, our gods had no ready answers, although Skyra and Lacrea miraculously cured as many of the afflicted as they could, and Lilith mercifully eased the final sufferings of countless others. It would be some time before our forebears recognized another aspect of this decline, such as a tremendous reduction in births. Given the spaced occurrence and private nature of such matters, each family suffered in silence, making it difficult to gauge the scope of the decline. Eventually, scholars conclude that despite apparent prosperity, population numbers were in an alarming recession. Our ancestors begged the gods for a solution, but received no answer. Resentment of the gods grew, with the inhabitants of each city blaming the patron of another. Some found it suspicious that Skyra had no solution, as her domain has always included fertility and birth. But by far the most popular targets were Lilith and Nisur, the gods of autumn and winter. Given the qualities of those seasons in the cycle of life, these accusations led to even occasional bloodshed between citizens of different cities, each protective of their patron god. The strong stigma associated with Yggdrasil in particular has its roots in this era, eventually prompting a division in our people we have only recently learned to regret. The gods attempted intervention, and for a time births surged and people rejoiced in an era of prosperity. This hope, however, was proved short-lived. Ios entered a recurring cycle of false hopes and disillusionment that would last for 3,000 years. Twice more, after centuries of decline, the gods tried to correct the problem with public demonstrations of divine power. Each time, this proved only a brief respite before the problem returned worse than before. Our people entered a widespread malaise and spent this era avoiding the facts before their eyes. Some say our citizens suffer from this same malady today. Our ancestors turned inward, isolated themselves, and sought distraction with idle entertainment and frivolous diversion. The inheritors of the survivors of Laios lost their sense of unity. The cities became disconnected, and roads succumbed to decay. The priesthood no longer communicated between the fanes that they had once had, instead focusing solely on the needs of their resident gods. Secrets and suspicions propagated and led to bursts of violent feuds between noble houses. The consulate court became powerless as a reflection of our own people. The exodus of the gods. I believe our gods early suspected that saving our people would require them to leave us. They studied the issue for many years, trying to shape reality by divine providence in order to remain. At last, in the year Astris 3126, they have made the announcement to the entire populace they would leave our world. This event at last united our isolated cities in a shared sense of alarm. The gods revealed they too were suffering, and their strength waned. The longer they were away from the Veld, the weaker their powers became. Their arrival had begun a cosmological imbalance that made it increasingly difficult for them to perform the divine functions. Our vitality is inextricably linked to the strength of our gods. The only solution was for the gods to reclaim the Veld and resume oversight of their domains. Unfortunately, any attempts to return met with a seemingly impenetrable barrier between the spiritual and material worlds. They did not explain what they hoped to find, and they hoped to find place out of egress, only we would never see them again. Their eventual success would restore the proper balance of life and death. After this proclamation, the gods gathered at the great fane of Osiris to conduct their final ceremonies. At the place in Ios where the gods had last convened, this fane thereafter was considered sacred and eternally forbidden. The highest priests of Osiris invoked a powerful bane there, stating that none would walk these halls until the gods returned. To our knowledge, this bane has never been violated. Despite whatever sorrows our ancestors felt at the departure of the gods, their exodus nonetheless brought hope. The gods had taken action and embarking upon a pilgrimage for our mutual salvation. For decades, faith and industry railed across all of Ios as citizens endeavored to make ready for our renewal. It was at this time that Nisor's people, those living in Darciel, abandoned their homes and began a lengthy migration out of Laos. The historians of the time preferred to let this event pass almost unremarked, yet in later centuries there was a systemic effort to erase mention of Darciel to the degree that its existence has almost been forgotten. What few records that have indicated the populace was shepherded out by a prophet named Aric. Shortly after the departure of the gods, he claimed he received a vision from Nisor, instructing him to lead his people away. The people of Darciel were few in number and had long been shunned by the other Iosian communities, as devotion to Nisor was unpopular. The god symbolized the end of life. The departure of his people may have been even welcome as the first sign of better times to come. Our ancestors were desperate for a, quote, winter's end, unquote. We now know that the people of Darciel would become the nice. But Laos would have had little contact with these cousins for nearly 1,000 years. Darciel was the first city to be abandoned, but in the intervening centuries many more followed. The priests of each fane continued their holy duties, but the outlying cities withered as inhabitants gave up family homes and moved forward. Shedves was the next to be cast off and reclaimed by the wilds, and even the once glorious Eversal became little more than the ceremonial grounds used to induct recruits into the ranks of the Dawn Guard.